Vampire films are probably one of the toughest horror films to really sell for me, and here we have The Last Voyage of the Demeter that is now available to check out in theaters. Is this film even worth investing your time to go check out a theater? Well, stick around and let's talk about it. A crew sailing from Carpathia to England find that they are carrying very dangerous cargo. The film stars Corey Hawkins, Aslan Franciosi, Liam Cunningham, David Dastmalchian, Chris Wally, and Woody Norman, and many others, and was directed by André Øvredal, and he's done one other film called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and he also was an executive producer of Polaroid and Umma. So going into The Last Voyage of the Demeter, I did see a trailer for this film a couple months ago, and when I saw the trailer, I was like, man, they've given away a lot of mystery about this film, who's on the ship, and it doesn't seem like it really has much plot. So going into this film, it didn't seem like there would be a lot of intrigue with this story. And actually, after I did watch this film, I did see they had a second trailer and more clips. And I did watch those clips and I was like, my gosh, they give away the whole freaking movie. If anybody watched all those clips and all the trailers, they honestly would have no reason to watch the movie. But even with just the first trailer, they gave away quite a bit of the film. And that was one problem I did think that they shouldn't have done when trying to advertise this film. But positives that I can say about this film is I do like the setting. I do like that we're on a boat here, got that dark setting, the thunderstorm. That's really cool. Before we get into that point, we do have a little bit of daylight. We are on land, and we show a little bit of the characters. We're introduced to this black character. His name is Clemens, and he is a physician, and he's having trouble really getting a job until a casket almost falls on top of this little boy, and the captain of the ship takes really pride in the fact that he did this, and he hires him to go onto this ship where you have all these crew members. They need to take this cargo over to England, and if they take it over in a fast enough time, they'll get a bunch of bonuses. So after we're introduced to this crew and about 10 minutes go by, we get all the crew on the ship, and it's nighttime, it's thunderstorming. You have that kind of eerie kind of feeling, a little bit of amping up with a score and music, and we're introduced to a lot of different characters and side characters. There are parts where Dracula, he comes out and he's killing people, and I thought the kills, they were handled pretty well. I felt like it had that slasher kind of vibe to it. It had some decent practical effects, I would say. I would say Dracula, the way that he looks, he's all right, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really that sold on the look of Dracula. My biggest problem with this movie is it is 80% in the dark, and the problem with that is there's just not a lot of intrigue or a lot of story really going on. You have the captain who narrates a lot throughout this movie, and I was like, why do we need to narrate what's going on? This is such a simple story. We do not need all this narration. This captain, this is his last voyage, and his grandson is on this voyage as well, and so he wants to retire after doing this last load. So that was a little bit interesting as to his character arc. But we get a lot of points where we have all these side characters sharing all this kind of dialogue, and honestly it just adds to nothing, and it makes the story feel very long and dragged out. The movie is 2 hours, and as far as the kills, they're very spread out. We have about 30 minutes until we even get our first kill, and when we get our first kill, the first kill is not that bad, but the problem is these kills, they're very repetitive, and especially the pattern of how these kills actually happen. For instance, Dracula makes his first kill, he disappears, and then we have about 20 minutes of dialogue between characters. We have monologues, we have soliloquies in this, and because we have a lot of this wasted time, the tension of the film, it gets brought down. The film is 2 hours, which is way too entirely long, I think, for this kind of story. I think this should be cut down to about an hour and a half. Now, I don't know as far as the book, how that is written. I don't know if the chapter that this is actually being talked about here in this film, I don't know if there's a lot of downtime or like Dracula kind of reappearing, killing, disappearing, that kind of thing. Also, as far as Dracula being on the ship, we never get an explanation as to why he's in this coffin and why they're transporting this casket to England. There's also another woman that appears that's a stowaway that's under the ship as well. no explanation as to why she's under the ship as well. Now, she does have a purpose as to her connection with Dracula. Colors in this film were absolutely ugly and dreadful at times, and I also found that there were points in the film where you couldn't see a damn thing. They try to use this fog throughout and try to create tension, and I thought it was a poor job of how they actually did that. And I'm sitting there going and kind of going through the fog and trying to figure out what's going on, and I can't see a damn thing. Score, at times, it wasn't used properly. I found that you have a bunch of characters where you know what's going to happen with them, and I found that the ending was going to be predictable as well. CGI was awful. At points I was thinking, man, the Flash CGI is better than this. I mean, just really bad stuff in this film. I really had a boring time with this film. I really was looking for a little bit more with this film. I felt like they really just didn't do a good job of fleshing out these characters, and the writing overall was just completely poor. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, they literally tell you in text what exactly is going to happen, so they dumb down the audience right away. That's one thing that I didn't like about this movie either. You have characters that really are decent actors. I think some of the actors and actresses in here, they can act, but when you give them nothing to work with, and you give them no character traits or personalities, and they're flat as a freaking board when it comes to actually characterization and depth, to actually develop a story. That's on the writers, that's on the director, and this movie just comes out too flat, and I cannot recommend to check this film out in theaters. As far as a score for this film, I would give it a 1.5 out of 5. Very poor movie, and honestly, it should have not been in theaters. Let me know down in the comments, did you check out this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? And if you have read the book, let me know how the book is. Is it like a slower paced kind of thing? Does Dracula kind of hang out and kill certain people, kind of take his time with doing that? I'm very interested to actually hear how Dracula is in the book if you have read it. But thank you guys for watching this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.